Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. Since 1957, robotic space probes have visited all the planets in the solar system.
We talked about the rovers being fake, and if that crinoid fossil, for example, was in a desert somewhere, then maybe that's why they didn't celebrate it, because...
Of course, I'm playing devil's advocate there.
Yeah.
The amount... Would they tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about such a discovery? Or would the scientific technological elite mentioned in Eisenhower's final address to the USA in 1961 become gatekeepers of secrets in the solar system? Here to discuss his book, Secrets in the Solar System, welcome back, Andrew Johnson.
Thanks, Richard, for that great introduction there.
Which I just read off the back of your book.
Well, that's why it's so good.
Okay, Andrew. Now, you mentioned there space probes, and I know there are some people who will say, oh, well, none of those probes even went there. Can we make a quick comment on that first?
Yeah, I think, you've got to do your own research again, and also that doesn't just involve internet research. I recommend that anybody who's interested joins a local astronomical society and starts to look at some of these objects for themselves. And you can even, for example, now do what's called, you can photograph it with a webcam or a better camera and do image stacking, take your own photographs of Mars if you get the right equipment. Same thing with Jupiter. You can see the features of Jupiter through a decent telescope. You might spend a few £100, but to me, if you really want to know the truth, that's what you should be doing your own research. See. As far as possible, you want to be seeing things with your own eyes.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that there's good evidence why we think they've not been honest with certain missions. So I've spent time looking at the Mars rover missions. You've spent a lot of time looking at the Apollo missions. And the reason why you spent time on Apollo and I spent time on the Mars rover missions is because we saw evidence that they were not being honest with the data, let's put it that way. But generally speaking, 90% of missions we think are probably they're being honest about.
I think in the main, yes, but this is where you've got to really focus down on the research and try about the rovers being fake. And if that crinoid fossil, for example, was in a desert somewhere, then maybe that's why they didn't celebrate it, because...
Of course, I'm playing devil's advocate there. But
But I think some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, and again, we've mentioned some of this on previous programmes, but there's one or two things that I discovered while I was writing the book, which I think, make you realise that this whole idea of discovering life and the way they're managing that is more complicated.
To me, it seems like they made that as a statement at the start to justify the missions.
Yes. And
when they started to find things, they kept it for...
But I think some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, and again, we've mentioned some of this on previous programmes, but there's one or two things that I discovered while I was writing the book, which I think, make you realise that this whole idea of discovering life and the way they're managing that is more complicated.
to me, it seems like they made that as a statement at the start to justify the missions.
Yes.
And when they started to find things, they kept it for themselves and then had to massage data in order to keep it to themselves. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, then, so you mentioned orbiters, and you believe that all of the planets and some of the moons have had orbiters successfully launched
Yes.
and are in orbit today around various...
Many of them, yeah, that have still got power, yes, yeah.
So we'll talk about the lunar orbiters first.
Yes.
And we're going to look at some images. So you're convinced enough that these images are genuine, Andrew?
Yes, yes. And I mean, some of them, you know, you can actually pick up with a good Earth-based telescope. And I think we had, I think the first on the list was the Aristarchus crater, wasn't it?
Yes, the Aristarchus crater. Viking.
Yeah,
7 years.
Yeah, this was 7 years before Viking, that you've got this image on a science fiction book cover where it's showing a face, you know, looking into space. And there was another one, that I think was Wayne Herschel that discovered that image originally. But there was another one from a comic book, and it was called, there was actually a comic, and it was called, this was from 1958, it was published in a comic called The Race for the Moon. The Race for the Moon. So, 1958 comic, The Race for the Moon. Mm-hmm. And it's got this story in it called The Face on Mars, 1958.
Right.
Huh? How is that possible? And that's a real comic book, but that's from 1958. So that, to me, is strong evidence that Mars has a history. And somebody knew what that history was, and somehow that was getting out into either science fiction stories or comic books way before Viking and way before the controversy and so forth that we've...
Caterpillar glass domes.
No, that's right. And around this same area, we've got this structure which I nicknamed the Caterpillar. I think that was my name. I don't think I stole that off anybody. That's just what it reminded me of when I first looked at it. And it's got these regularly spaced segments in it. And it's about 1.3 miles long. What is this thing? Again, I've seen no explanation for this other than sand dunes. Everything is a sand dune to a planetary geologist that's looking at Mars, apparently, or you know, an ice field or something, or some combination thereof.